Harry Seldon, born in the 11,988th year of the Galactic Era, died 12,069. The dates are more commonly given in terms of the current foundational era as -79 to the year 1 FE. Born to middle-class parents on Helicon, Arcturus sector, where his father, in a legend of doubtful authenticity, was a tobacco grower in the hydroponic plants of the planet, he early showed amazing ability in mathematics. Anecdotes concerning his ability are innumerable, and some are contradictory. At the age of 2, he is said to have... Undoubtedly, his greatest contributions were in the field of psychohistory. Seldon found the field little more than a set of vague axioms. He left it a profound statistical science. The best existing authority we have for the details of his life is the biography written by Gal Dornick, who, as a young man, met Seldon 2 years before the great mathematician's death. The story of the meeting, Encyclopedia Galactica. All quotations from the Encyclopedia Galactica here reproduced are taken from the 116th edition, published in 1020 FE by the Encyclopedia Galactica Publishing Company, Terminus, with permission of the publishers. His name was Gal Dornick, and he was just a country boy who had never seen Trantor before. That is, not in real life. He had seen it many times on the hypervideo, and occasionally in tremendous three-dimensional newscasts covering an imperial coronation or the opening of a galactic council. Even though he had lived all his life on the world of Synax, which circled a star at the edges of the Blue Drift, he was not cut off from civilization, you see. At that time, no place in the galaxy was. There were nearly 25 million inhabited planets in the galaxy then, and not one but owed allegiance to the Empire whose seat was on Trantor. It was the last half-century in which that could be said. To Gal, this trip was the undoubted climax of his young, scholarly life. He had been in space before, so that the trip, as a voyage and nothing more, meant little to him. To be sure, he had traveled previously only as far as Synax's only satellite, in order to get the data on the mechanics of meteor driftage which he needed for his dissertation. But space travel was all one, whether one traveled 500,000 miles or as many light years. He had steeled himself just a little for the jump through hyperspace, a phenomenon one did not experience in simple interplanetary trips. The jump remained, and would probably remain forever, the only practical method of traveling between the stars. Travel through ordinary space could proceed at no rate more rapid than that of ordinary light, a bit of scientific knowledge that belonged among the few items known since the forgotten dawn of human history, and that would have meant years of travel between even the nearest of inhabited systems. Through hyperspace, that unimaginable region that was neither space nor time, matter nor energy, something nor nothing, one could traverse the length of the galaxy in the interval between 2 neighboring instants of time. Gal had waited for the first of those jumps with a little dread curled gently in his stomach, and it ended in nothing more than a trifling jar, a little internal kick which ceased an instant before he could be sure he had felt it. That was all. And after that, there was only the ship, large and glistening, the cool production of 12,000 years of imperial progress, and himself, with his doctorate in mathematics freshly obtained and an invitation from the great Harry Seldon to come to Trantor and join the vast and somewhat mysterious Seldon Project. What Gal was waiting for after the disappointment of the jump was that first sight of Trantor. He haunted the view room. The steel shutter lids were rolled back at announced times, and he was always there, watching the hard brilliance of the stars, enjoying the incredible hazy swarm of a star cluster, like a giant conglomeration of fireflies caught in mid-motion and stilled forever. At one time, there was the cold, blue-white smoke of a gaseous nebula within 5 light-years of the ship, spreading over the window like distant milk, filling the room with an icy tinge, and disappearing out of sight 2 hours later, after another jump. The first sight of Trantor's sun was that of a hard, white speck, all but lost in a myriad such, and recognizable only because it was pointed out by the ship's guide. The stars were thick here at the galactic center, but with each jump it shone more brightly, drowning out the rest, paling them and thinning them out. An officer came through and said, "View room will be closed for the remainder of the trip. Prepare for landing." Gal had followed after, clutching at the sleeve of the white uniform with the spaceship and sun of the Empire on it. He said, "Would it be possible to let me stay? I would like to see Trantor." The officer smiled and Gal flushed a bit. It occurred to him that he spoke with a provincial accent. The officer said, "We'll be landing on Trantor by morning." "I mean, I want to see it from space." "Oh, sorry, my boy. If this were a space yacht, we might manage it. But we're spinning down, sun side. You wouldn't want to be blinded, burnt, and radiation scarred all at the same time, would you?" Gal started to walk away. The officer called after him. "Trantor would only be a gray blur anyway, kid. Why don't you take a space tour once you hit Trantor? They're cheap." Gal looked back. "Thank you very much." It was childish to feel disappointed, but childishness comes almost as naturally to a man as to a child, and there was a lump in Gal's throat. He had never seen Trantor spread out in all its incredibility, as large as life, and he hadn't expected to have to wait longer. It seemed inevitable that the next danger the Foundation would have to face was the final lash of the dying Empire. The way must be cleared for the battle of Foundation and Empire. Part 1. The General. Bel Riose. In his relatively short career, Riose earned the title of the last of the Imperials, and earned it well. A study of his campaigns reveals him to be the equal of Purefoy in strategic ability, and his superior, perhaps, in his ability to handle men. That he was born in the days of the decline of Empire made it all but impossible for him to equal Purefoy's record as a conqueror. Yet he had his chance when, the first of the Empire's generals to do so, he faced the Foundation squarely. Encyclopedia Galactica. Footnote. All quotations from the Encyclopedia Galactica here reproduced are taken from the 116th edition published in 1020 Foundation era by the Encyclopedia Galactica Publishing Company, Terminus, with permission of the publishers. Chapter 1. Search for Magicians. Bel Riose traveled without escort, which is not what court etiquette prescribes for the head of a fleet stationed in a yet sullen stellar system on the marches of the Galactic Empire. But Bel Riose was young and energetic enough to be sent as near the end of the universe as possible by an unemotional and calculating court, and curious besides. Strange and improbable tales fancifully repeated by hundreds and murkily known to thousands intrigued the last faculty. The possibility of a military venture engaged the other two. The combination was overpowering. He was out of the dowdy ground car he had appropriated and at the door of the fading mansion that was his destination. He waited. The photonic eye that spanned the doorway was alive, but when the door opened, it was by hand. Bel Riose smiled at the old man. "I am Riose." "I recognize you." The old man remained stiffly and unsurprised in his place. "Your business." Riose withdrew a step in a gesture of submission. "One of peace. If you are Duke Umbar, I ask the favor of conversation." Duke Umbar stepped aside, and in the interior of the house the walls glowed into life. The general entered into daylight. He touched the wall of the study, then stared at his fingertips. "You have this on Siwenna?" Barr smiled thinly. Not elsewhere, I believe. I keep this in repair myself as well as I can. I must apologize for your wait at the door. The automatic device registers the presence of a visitor, but will no longer open the door. Your repairs fall short. The general's voice was faintly mocking. Parts are no longer available. If you will sit, sir. You drink tea? On Serena? My good sir, it is socially impossible not to drink it here. The old patrician retreated noiselessly with a slow bow that was part of the ceremonious legacy left by the aristocracy of the last century's better days. Rios looked after his host's departing figure, and his studied urbanity grew a bit uncertain at the edges. His education had been purely military, his experience likewise. He had, as the cliché has it, faced death many times, but always death of a very familiar and tangible nature. Consequently, there is no inconsistency in the fact that the idolized lion of the 20th Fleet felt chilled in the suddenly musty atmosphere of an ancient Rome. The general recognized the small, black ivory boxes that lined the shelves to be books. Their titles were unfamiliar. He guessed that the large structure at one end of the room was the receiver that transmuted the books into sight and sound on demand. He had never seen one in operation, but he had heard of them. Once he had been told that long before, during the golden ages when the Empire had been coextensive with the entire galaxy, 9 houses out of every 10 had the goal of all searches. The mule must find it to make his conquest of the galaxy complete. The faithful of what was left of the first foundation must find it for quite another reason. But where was it? That no one knew. This, then, is the story of the search for the second foundation. Part 1. Search by the Mule. The Mule. It was after the fall of the first foundation that the constructive aspects of the mule's regime took shape. After the definite breakup of the first Galactic Empire, it was he who first presented history with a unified volume of space truly imperial in scope. The earlier commercial empire of the fallen foundation had been diverse and loosely knit, despite the impalpable backing of the predictions of psychohistory. It was not to be compared with the tightly controlled union of worlds under the mule, particularly during the era of the so-called search. Encyclopedia Galactica. Footnote. All quotations from the Encyclopedia Galactica here reproduced are taken from the 116th edition published in 1020 Foundation era by the Encyclopedia Galactica Publishing Company, Terminus, with permission of the publishers. Chapter 1. 2 Men and the Mule. There is much more that the encyclopedia has to say on the subject of the mule and his empire, but almost all of it is not germane to the issue at immediate hand, and most of it is considerably too dry for our purposes in any case. Mainly the article concerns itself at this point with the economic conditions that led to the rise of the first citizen of the Union, the mule's official title, and with the economic consequences thereof. If at any time the writer of the article is mildly astonished at the colossal haste with which the mule rose from nothing to vast dominion in 5 years, he conceals it. If he is further surprised at the sudden cessation of expansion in favor of a 5-year consolidation of territory, he hides the fact. We therefore abandon the encyclopedia and continue on our own path for our own purposes, and take up the history of the great interregnum between the first and second galactic empires at the end of that 5 years of consolidation. Politically, the Union is quiet. Economically, it is prosperous. Few would care to exchange the peace of the mule's steady grip for the chaos that had preceded. On the worlds that 5 years previously had known the Foundation, there might be a nostalgic regret, but no more. The Foundation's leaders were dead, where useless, and converted where useful. And of the converted, the most useful was Han Pritcher, now Lieutenant General. In the days of the Foundation, Han Pritcher had been a captain and a member of the underground Democratic opposition. When the Foundation fell to the mule without a fight, Pritcher fought the mule. Until, that is, he was converted. The conversion was not the ordinary one brought on by the power of superior reason. Han Pritcher knew that well enough. He had been changed because the mule was a mutant with mental powers quite capable of adjusting the conditions of ordinary humans to suit himself. But that satisfied him completely. That was as it should be. The very contentment with the conversion was a prime symptom of it, but Han Pritcher was no longer even curious about the matter. And now that he was returning from his 5th major expedition into the boundlessness of the galaxy outside the Union, it was with something approaching artless joy that the veteran spaceman and intelligence agent considered his approaching audience with the first citizen. His hard face, gouged out of a dark, grainless wood that did not seem to be capable of smiling without cracking, didn't show it. But the outward indications were unnecessary. The mule could see the emotions within, down to the smallest, much as an ordinary man could see the twitch of an eyebrow. Pritcher left his air car.